Welcome back to the Shine Within podcast. Silvia Subirana is a clinical psychologist and the head of content development at My Dry 30, an innovative app designed to help users transform their relationship with alcohol and unlock deeper fulfillment in their lives. With a master's in clinical psychology and specialized training in grief and sexual therapy, Silvia combines her expertise with tools like hypnotherapy, journaling, and mindfulness to support personal growth. A lifelong dancer, she deeply understands the mind body connection and is passionate about holistic well being. Through My Dry 30, Sylvia empowers people to embrace change, build self awareness, and cultivate lasting happiness. Sylvia, thank you so much for being on my show today. I am excited to just talk about what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here too.
Yeah, all the way from Australia, people.
Yeah.
But originally from Spain. I just discovered
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, a bit all over. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So my maiden name is Carrion. It's not
Mm,
well, Kunadian is my husband's name, and he's from India, and then came
mm.
here to the U.S. and became a citizen. But my dad's dad, my grandpa, he passed away when I was a baby. He's from Spain, so he has the nice, beautiful,
Ah.
lighter complexion, the green eyes, and
Mm.
everything. And I wish I got those eyes. But anyway, before I start telling you my family history, let's talk about My Dry 30. And it's more than an app, right?
Hmm.
It's an app for cutting back on alcohol, but it's also for personal transformation. What actually inspired you to develop this holistic approach, and how does it help users find greater meaning in their lives?
So, technically, I didn't develop the app. It was a salesman from the US that had the idea because he realized that in more than half of his meetings, there was alcohol involved. And he said, if I hadn't drunk that bottle of wine or those beers with those clients, I wouldn't have sealed the deal. And he was like, how can alcohol be so normalized that we use it even at work? So that's why he was like, I want to help people change, or I want to like little by little change that idea. But of course, he was a salesman, he didn't have the tools or the knowledge. So he contacted some clinical psychologists, and that's when I came into the picture. And together we developed the program that My Dry 30 is today. And we wanted to differentiate us from other programs because we've seen that other programs focus more on not drinking and just using that as, well, a tool to focus on quitting and that's it. But that can create a lot of guilt in people that have slip ups and drink from time to time. And what we saw is that a lot of people, if you're doing, I don't know, 30 days with not drinking and you're focusing on that not drinking and there's guilt involved and shame, especially, if they slip up on day 15, they're like, oh, well, I've already like slipped up that I've messed it up already. So I'm just gonna quit. Like I'm just gonna continue drinking how I used to, right? So we wanted to focus on a different approach. We wanted to focus on self-knowledge. So we wanted to give people the tools to understand why they were drinking, in which situations they were drinking, and how can they switch that mindset and find some solutions in what they're trying to solve with alcohol, basically.
Yes, because we use alcohol to either feel or not to feel. I know for myself, I
Hmm.
used alcohol as a liquid courage. I wanted it to make me feel prettier or more confident, like I can do my job better. I can, socialize better. But in all actuality, that wasn't me. It wasn't me. And I wish I had a tool like that when I was in my, even, yeah, when I first had awareness, like, hey, I have a problem. I wish I had a tool like that to help me. Now, avoiding alcohol for 30 days can be manageable. I know it can be tricky for some, but what are some of the biggest challenges that you actually notice in people um, who f- who have a hard time sustaining like long-term progress?
A lot of people, well, it really depends on the person because some people understand their like their ways of drinking alcohol and when they do it and all that, and they have the tools to then seek moderation, because we don't shame anybody for not drink for like choosing to drink a little bit. We give two options at the end of those 30 days. We're like, okay, you can quit completely or you can choose moderation. There's some people that say, yeah, I'm just going to choose moderation, and they are capable of doing it. But there's other people that say, mm, no, for me, it's either all or nothing. If I drink a little bit, I just cannot stop, right? So, again, what matters is people need to understand what works for them, and maybe what worked for your friend didn't work for you. So you need to understand what works for you and how you can implement those things and your limits as well. It's hard. It's a hard work. Like, it's a journey. We say that it's a journey, because yeah, life can change all the time, and situations change all the time. And maybe what you were used to doing before, you cannot do it anymore for many, many reasons. So it's just adaptability and flexibility and patience, especially not focusing on that shame of, oh, I cannot do it anymore like I used to do it, but more like, okay, that's what's happening right now. How can I proceed, right? How can I approach it?
Yes. So what I love is that you give, it's like they're giving a choice for themselves. Like,
Hmm.
hey, I I want to maybe not drink every day. I want to just do three times a week instead, then that's the power of choice. They actually get to choose that. And just having any type of a tool to help them navigate, like, hey, I want to limit and change the relationship I have with alcohol is very self-powering. And so I'm so happy you're not like, okay, no, you need to stop because everyone's going to quit right away. Isn't that?
Hmm.
But just to slowly change their habits and do more focus on themselves and do some self-discovery. And you
Hmm.
also have hypnotherapy as well in the app. But can you talk a little bit about what hypnotherapy does?
Yeah, so I always like explaining what it is, because when you talk about hypnosis or hypnotherapy, people get a bit scared. Like, no, you're gonna hypnose me and I'm gonna rob a bank, right? And it's like, no, that's not how it works. I think movies have really harmed that image. Basically, what hypnotherapy does is it brings you to a state of relaxation, of deep relaxation, where all your noise, all your background noise in your mind, like all your problems, all your concerns, everything that you're thinking every day, just dials down, lowers the volume, right? And you're in that deep state of relaxation where you're still conscious, so you're still aware of what's happening and what you're listening to. You're just more relaxed. And in that state, you're more open to suggestions, but suggestions that you agree with. If I say you're going to rob a bank, you don't agree with that, so you're not going to do it. But if I say you're going to have better habits, or you're going to focus on what makes you feel fulfilled, then you're going to, little by little, your mind is going to change. And it has a very, very powerful effect on the brain, because, well, a lot of people know that changing habits is extremely difficult, especially when it includes a substance, right? Like alcohol. So the way that hypnotherapy works is it helps the brain create that habit, that new habit of not drinking or drinking less without you even realizing. Because um the brain, it's a bit, I would say, lazy, even though like the brain does so many things for us. It's like they try, like all our brains try to optimize the energy. It's like they have to do so many things for the body that are like, okay, if I do this all the time, then I'm gonna create a very, very strong neuropath, like between two brain cells. I'm gonna create this strong neuropath, so I have to like, well, use the least energy possible to do that. So that's why, for example, someone gets home from work and is stressed, it's gonna think, okay, I'm gonna have a glass of wine. And because that person just does it all the time, that path between those neurons gets very, very strong. So in the end, it's like is so automatic that you don't even think about it. You're like, you're not even thinking that you're stressed. You're just thinking of the wine when you're in the car getting home, because that is super, super automatic in the brain. What hypnotherapy does is create another path the between the neurons, between the brain cells, that suggests other things, like, for example, having better habits or having other other ways to deal with stress, right? So little by little, that path that is created by hypnotherapy will gain more and more power. So in the end, it will become a go-to, and it will be easier for us to implement it as a habit. Of course, this is not built in a day. This requires some time, but our program is 30 days of 15 minutes of hypnotherapy a day, and people see the changes after between 10 and 14 days, more or less. That's when people have been saying that they've been, well, having less urges to drink, because that first path that they had is losing its power because the brain is creating another one. And that's why it's very, very useful, and it's an easier way for people to break with that cycle of I cannot get out of this, right? It's obviously you still have to work, you still have to well stick to that new habit and create new paths for yourself. But I think it makes it a bit easier. And sometimes with these things, it's all you need to make it a bit easier, because it's already very difficult.
Yeah, and in your opinion, why do people resist change? Like I was very stubborn back then too. I resisted it all the time. But how can they go ahead and reframe fear into an opportunity for more of self-discovery?
I think we are so scared of the unknown. We love controlling everything around us. So when even if it's a change for good, we're like, no, this is what if I miss this, or what if I miss out on that, or what if we are always with the what if. And actually in Spanish we have a saying that basically says it's better to have something known but bad rather than change it for something that's going to be good, because we already know the bad. So it's already known, it's already in our control, right? And this is so, well, it's so heartbreaking for me to see, and I do it as well. It's inevitable, because it's it's frustrating to see how people don't make that change because they're just scared of what's going to happen. And it's part of life. Change is part of life. So if we just get stuck in that habit or in that way of doing it, it's just you're not adapting to the change that's going on in your life. Something that might have worked for you 5 years ago might not be working now, but because you think that you're the same person, you're sticking to that habit, but you don't realize that you have changed in 5 years, that everyone around you has changed, everything around you has changed. Maybe you've moved, maybe you've changed jobs, maybe you've lost people, unfortunately. So the techniques that you used 5 years ago might not be adequate for you right now. And I always try to embrace change, and I always try to help people embracing change in a in a less scary way, by saying do it one day at a time, do it little by little. When you think I want to change all these things, it becomes a massive, it's like a massive bubble in front of your face. And you realize the amount of things that you need to change, that is so overwhelming that you end up not changing absolutely anything. That's not useful. So what I always tell people is set very, very little goals, like very, very approachable goals that you can do every single day. Like, well, if any idea that you might have for yourself, just do it, right? And when you approach changes very, 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 very little, little by little, then you don't realize after like a month, you don't realize how much you've changed. And then you look back and you're like, oh, wow, that has really helped, right? So for me, the key is to approach it with a lot of patience, of course, and just do it one step at a time, and don't pressure yourself to just change fast because that's not going to work.
Little baby steps, right? And give yourself
Exactly.
grace and compassion. I always say grace and compassion. We're not going to just change overnight. Like, look how long it took us to develop a relationship with alcohol that we want to break up with. It's going to take some time to recover from that relationship, So it's just like any relationship we have with anybody,
Exactly.
you know.
Exactly.
But what other advice would you go ahead and give to someone who is afraid to take that first step towards a healthier relationship with alcohol?
I always encourage people to give it a try. Don't think that you're gonna change the relationship forever because you can always go back to the habit that you're using or like the amount of alcohol that you're drinking because you already know that and you already well that's already familiar for you. So you already have that resource. I'm saying resource, it's not really a resource, but it's a habit, right? You already have that habit. So trying a different thing won't hurt you. It will only give you knowledge of other things, other possibilities in your life, right? When people ask me why should I use my Dry 30? And I'm like, well, it's a different program, and the program doesn't only focus on hypnotherapy. It's 30 minutes a day of, well, you have hypnotherapy for 15 minutes, but then you have journaling questions, you have readings, you have breathing techniques, you have movement that you can choose along the app. And what we want to, what we want to provide with all this is we want to make people understand that with that knowledge, they are going to be able to choose. So we want to give people the opportunity to be able to make a choice. Do I want that drink or am I doing it out of habit? Right. And um, if you just give it a try, maybe the app doesn't work for you. Maybe another app does work for you. But everyone is different, right? But I encourage people to just give it a try and see how they feel because they already know the situation that they're in now. But they might discover something very, very powerful changing or discovering that app or learning about other things. So yeah, just give it a go.
Just try it. Just give it a try. What do you have to lose? Nothing. You'll only have to gain stuff.
Exactly.
No,
Exactly.
any feedback that you've actually received from the app? What are people saying?
So people are noticing the changes, as I said before, with hypnotherapy between day 10 and day 14. It really depends on the person, but yeah, I would say between those 2 weeks. And um when they notice it, I think it's when it becomes more powerful for them because obviously people when they start a new program, they're a bit more reluctant, like, I don't know if this is gonna work for me, right? But when they start seeing the changes, they're like, oh wow, this can actually be something good for me, right? And we've had people say, "Why is it only 30 days? I want to do it for longer," right? And we always encourage people, you can go back to day one and do it again because by day 30 you won't remember what the hypnotherapy session at day one was. So you can just repeat those hypnotherapy sessions. And then there's so many journaling questions, so many exercises that you can just do a completely different month on like the second month, right? So we've been having very good results. And to my surprise, that we've been having more people that decide to moderate and more people that decide to quit. And for me, that is very relevant because that makes me think that there's a lot of apps out there that help you quit, a lot of programs out there that help you go zero alcohol, but then there's not many programs that help you moderate, that help you choose when you want to drink. So, well, it's 60-40 more or less, the percentages, in 16 moderation, maybe it's like 59 or something like that. Um, but yeah, we've been receiving a lot of good feedback, which is great because what our founder, like the salesman that I was talking about before, wanted was to like help people. Even if he said, even if I'm changing 5 lives, that is my goal. Like I just want to change someone's lives or I just want to help someone. It doesn't have to be millions of people. If it's 5 people, I will be absolutely amazed. And we're already there. Obviously, we've surpassed those 5 people, but I don't know, it's just amazing to see how this tool can have so many benefits. And in the end, it's giving people the power and the self-knowledge to choose for themselves, which I think it's the key.
The power of choice. Remember, I was saying this before, is very empowering when you're able to make that choice for yourself because you're building that self-awareness and you know your soul is guiding you like, hey,
Mhm.
let's try this. Let's try this out. Now, one of my dry I'm not but my dry 30s core idea is the power of connection with ourselves and of course with others. Why is building a supportive community essential for personal growth?
I think we're social animals. That's a fact, right? We need to be in contact with other people. We need to feel loved and love other people. That's part of our nature, right? So I think we've developed a society that is very individual. Everything's focused on yourself, and I think even for more for women than for men, because we're like now we've been taught that you have to be independent, that you have to be strong, that you have to be able to do everything, and we don't let ourselves be helped. We don't accept that help because it's seen as weakness, but it's not a weakness at all. Every one of our ancestors was in tribes, in groups, and they all helped each other. If you go back in time, you see that a lot of people had kids, but it was not the mums or the dads duty to educate and make that kid grow and help them grow. It was all the tribes. So people had so much help and they accepted help because that was the way that they were, well, their culture back then, right? So I think right now we are in such an individualized culture and society that it's really harmed us because we feel very alone. There's so many people that feel so lonely. And when you feel loneliness, you feel so helpless. You feel that's when you feel sad and when that's why a lot of depression is coming, well, it's becoming higher and higher these days because we feel very lonely. So focusing on those relationships in your life is key for you to feel more fulfilled as well. And if the relationships in your life are not giving you that or they're not a good influence for you, then developing new relationships, seeking new people to connect with is very powerful as well. So in the app, we also have connection days, which for me, like, they're one of my favorite things. It's a tiny task, like it's a banner that says, okay, for example, we have gratitude day and um it's the first one, right? On day 5, you receive a banner and says, grab your phone and text someone that you're grateful for to have in your life, someone that you appreciate in your life, and just let them know that you appreciate them. And it takes you, what, 30 seconds to type that message? And you make the other person's day, and that makes your day as well. So those little things really, well, make you feel more fulfilled and make you feel more connected with the people in your life. Because we appreciate a lot of people in our lives, but we don't let them know. And they don't let us know either. So by creating that habit of appreciating more the people around you, connecting more with people around you, let them know that you're there, even if you haven't been talking for a while, let them know. If you call me, I'll straight away pick up the phone or stuff like that. It really changes in the way that you feel towards yourself and towards them and how they feel about you as well.
Yes, so you're pretty much raising your frequency and your vibration when you're doing these practices from the app. It feels like, yeah, by you expressing gratitude, connecting with maybe someone that you haven't spoken to, saying, "Hey, I'm thinking about you. I just wanted to send my love to you." those things raise our frequency, and it's like a ripple effect. I always say this on my podcast is when we have that energy, that vibration and frequency, it goes out to the world and it just becomes a better place. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I love that. Now, talking about shame and guilt, I know we were talking a little, you were talking about this a little bit earlier. What is one common misconception about shame, and how does it actually impact our ability to change?
Shame is very, very destroying because when you're ashamed of yourself, you, well, you don't move because shame tells you you are not capable, you are not enough, you are not going to be able to change, for example. And you're stuck in there because instead of saying, I don't know, I made a mistake, but I am able to change that in the future, or I am able to learn from that mistake, shame is telling you you are not able to. You are just that mistake. You're a failure, right? So if you're stuck in that cycle of thinking that you're a failure, that you are gonna always be making that mistake because that's how you are, that is very, very incapacitating. It makes you feel like you are the littlest, littlest thing. So getting stuck in shame is very, very well, there's so many things that I could say. It's well, frustrating. It's incapacitating, as I said before. So it's it's a hard work. It's a hard job to change that shame feeling or that ashamed, if you're ashamed of yourself, to change it into guilt. Because guilt actually gives you the power to improve. Guilt tells you, oh, I slipped up yesterday. That was not a good thing to do. And then you might feel guilty, but that guilt can make you um have more power to then say, okay, in the future, I'm not going to do it again because I will remember how I felt. That shame, if you feel shame, it's like, oh, you're a failure. You're not gonna go through with this. So just like stop it because you're not good, right? And it just makes you be stuck in there. So little by little transforming that mindset of no, that's all right. It's okay if you slip up. It's okay if you make mistakes. They're part of the process. They're part of life. So accept that those mistakes are going to be there. Everybody makes mistakes. Even the person that you admire the most makes mistakes all the time. So accepting those mistakes and then using them as a tool to be like, okay, I don't want to feel like that again. So if I have the urge in the future, say no, I felt like that and I didn't agree with that. So let's focus on that and that's gonna make me help. Also, that's gonna help me, sorry, make better decisions now. So it's a change of mindset. And again, it takes time, it takes patience, but I think a lot of good things in life take time and patience. You just have to wait for them and work for them little by little and be very, very, as you said before, be very, very graceful with yourself because these things are hard. They're very hard. So just embrace it little by little. And as I said before, when you look back in time, you'll be like, oh, wow, I've actually changed way more than I expected.
Yes. And then those little hiccups I noticed, they're learning lessons, and you learn more about yourself in the process. And so I actually embrace those hiccups. I'm like, thank you for them because I'm learning more about myself and how I can make
Hmm.
those little minor shifts to improve. And
Hmm.
I actually wind up improving later on. So we have to learn from our little hiccups here and there, and that's okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
yeah, so we've learned that the My Dry 30 integrates hypnotherapy, journaling, and of course, self-reflection. But for our audience, can you share some simple but effective exercises our listeners can go ahead and try today, even to build self-awareness and resilience?
For me, there's a very easy technique, grounding technique that I use all the time because I tend to go into that cycle of thought and my anxiety just goes up, right? So I always tell people this exercise because it really works for me. So I just help. I well, yeah. And it's the 5 4 3 2 1. It's very famous. Like, probably a lot of your listeners already know it, but it's when you're in that anxious cycle or vicious cycle of just thinking of well, overthinking more than thinking, and you're stuck in there and there's no way for you to leave that cycle. Stop and say, okay, say out loud 5 things that you can see, and you just focus around five and look for 5 things you can see and say, okay, I see a door, I see a light, or I see a tree, right? If you're outside, like just say 5 things that you can see. After that, 4 things that you can touch, and you actually approach those things and touch them. So involve your senses as well. After that, 3 things that you can hear, and then you focus on maybe you hear a bird, maybe you hear the cars. After that, 2 things that you can taste. Maybe you have a sweet or something that you can put in your mouth and you can taste that. Or maybe you just had breakfast or something and you can taste what you had for breakfast. And then 1 thing that you can smell. Obviously, I said that, but you can change the senses. Like if you can smell more things that you can taste, then obviously you can change that. Um, but basically, by stopping what you're thinking, involving the senses, it really brings you back to the here and now. And that is very, very powerful because when you come back to where you are right now, all your body just relaxes. Because when you're stuck in that cycle of overthinking, your body's activated, your body's ready to fight, is in that fight or flight, right? When you are like, okay, no, I'm just going to focus on what I can see or what I can smell, what I can hear, right? Um, your body relaxes all those thoughts, right? All the activation just goes down. And by the time you've finished, it might take a couple of minutes, but by the time you've finished, you are way more relaxed and way more in touch with what you're feeling right now. That is very, very easy for you to just switch onto a more positive way of thinking instead of getting stuck in that overthinking again. So yeah, this is a very powerful tool that I use all the time. And again, I change the senses all the time. If I'm in a place that I cannot smell anything, I put just smell 1 thing, right? And if I have a couple of things to taste, then I just put them in my mouth. But if I can hear more things, maybe I say 5 things that I can hear, right? So yeah, you can do your own technique with this, moving the senses around. The important thing is to embrace that and really, really focus on what you can touch, what you can smell, involve all your 5 senses if possible.
That's great. Yeah, this is a great mindfulness practice. And because being in the present moment is a present, is it's a gift. And we're often, our mind wanders and thinks about a million things that are happened yesterday or what's going to be happening in the future. That's not relevant, but the here and now is. That's why I always say it's a gift. So thank you for sharing that. Something that I need to start doing again too, because sometimes my mind tends to be like, oh, I have my list of things to do. When you have your own business and everything, and you have kids and housework, and in-laws are here in town, I'm like, I have to ground myself. And yeah, so thanks for sharing that.
It happens to
Yes.
everybody. So yeah, I understand. That's
Everybody.
why, yeah, that's why this technique is so simple. You do it in a couple minutes and it really dials down everything. It really brings you back to uh well, a more balanced self. So then you can move on and continue with your life, even doing all those tasks that you need to do, but in a more relaxed way instead of just like becoming that wreck of nerves and just trying to do everything at once because that is not going to work.
That's right. Well, thank you so much for being on my show. Where can our listeners find this app? I know they're so excited right now and want to go ahead. Can you please share that information?
Yeah, so they can find the app in Apple Store and Google Play. In App Store is My Dry 30 and they'll find it. And then in Google Play, Google Store, I don't know how it's called, it's My Dry Journey. And if they want to know a bit more specific things about the program, they can always look at our website, mydry30.com. So it's my dry and then a number 30. It's the same with the app. Um, and all of our program, it's explained in there, very, very detailed. We have no, opinions of people. We have many, many sources of information that they can check it out if they are a bit hesitant or if they want to know more about it. And we also have our Instagram, My Dry 30, again, My Dry 30 app, where we share, well, motivational little memes or sentences or people share what they think of the app. So we have testimonials as well. So it's a good thing to just check out all of our resources and see, yeah, what interests you.
That's amazing. And I will have everything in the show notes for the listeners. But any last words, Sylvia?
Well, I always like reminding myself and people to take it easy because, as I said before, we're very impatient. We want things now, and a lot of the things take time and patience. So I always try to remind myself, take it easy, things will come. You just need to work for it and, well, be patient and graceful with yourself.
Yes. Well, thank you so much again.
Thank you for having me.